Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov chess channel and welcome to a new chess strategy video. So in this video I'm going to talk about the Dutch defense again. Today in this video I wanted to show you how to beat the Dutch defense by using a very nice strategic concept, by also using some cool tactical ideas in the middle game stage. In my opinion, the Dutch defense is an opening that's probably not going to be played in top GM level, and it's supposed to be bad. Many players will say that the Dutch defense is bad because with the move f5 you're already exposing your king on light squares, because if you castle on king side then there are many tactics that could happen on light squares, but still sometimes we even face a bad opening like the Dutch defense, but we don't know what to do. Our opponent has a clear strategy what to do in the Dutch defense, because the Dutch defense player knows what he's trying to get. He knows what he's trying to do, and then you probably didn't expect him maybe to play the Dutch defense in the first place because you haven't prepared yourself. You don't know. You don't have a setup. You don't have an approach. You don't have a clear plan how to play against the Dutch defense. So in this video I wanted to help you out by first of all understanding the concepts, understanding the strategy, understanding the plans of black, what he's actually trying to do in the Dutch defense, and how to counterplay these ideas. Because if you understand his whole strategy, then I think it's very easy to play against the Dutch defense, and I think you have great winning chances by applying many of this method that you'll show you now today. The game that we're following is one of my games. It's maybe not the most spectacular game, but I played here really without inaccuracies, mistakes or blunders, so I think you can use this game as your cornerstone, as your preparation against the Dutch defense, because as I said, I played almost a perfect game here, outplayed the Dutch defense with cool strategies, but then also with cool tactics in the end. So let's see what's the problem, what are black's ideas, and how we should counterplay these ideas, how to understand first of all the plans of blacks in the Dutch defense. So I played first move the d4. Now my opponent played the move e6. He tried probably to trick me into the French defense. He probably hoped that I play e4, then he played d5, because he's probably very familiar with concepts in the French defense. But I basically am d4 player, so if I would have want to play against the French defense, I would play the first move e4, so that's why I played normally with in my sort of d4 way with the move c4, and now my opponent played now the Dutch defense setup with the move f5. My recommendation against any Dutch that can happen, there are many Dutch defenses that you can play. There is this d4, f5, I don't know, c4, g6 Leningrad setup. There is also this e6, d5, c6 Stonewall setup, or maybe the classical approach here after move d4, f5, then the classical approach would be something like, I don't know, e6, bishop to e7 and d6. So all of these approaches, all of these three possibilities, there are many possibilities, but I guarantee you there are basically three concepts that black will apply by playing the Dutch defense. So as I said, the Leningrad, the Stonewall setup, or maybe the classical system with d6, bishop to e7. Whatever your opponent is doing after move f5, I recommend you to go into the fianchetto attack with the move g3. This is, in my opinion, the best approach, keeping your options on light squares, putting more pressure against his possibility of the Stonewall setup, because as I said, he will try many times to play d5, c6 to have a grip on light squares, and then he try maybe to play knight to f6, knight to e4, cement the position around the square e4. So as I said, first of all, my recommendation in any against any Dutch defense variations, sidelines, possibilities, is to go into the fianchetto attack. Now for move knight to f6, I played normal here with the move bishop to g2, and now comes already a trigger for you. Now in the next move, which is a very important thing for you to notice, now in the next move your opponent will show his cards. That's now the most important thing to say here about this position. Basically your opponent will show what kind of a Dutch he is going to play. If he goes with d5, then obviously he's going into Stonewall structures. If he plays g6, basically he's playing a bad sideline of the Leningrad Dutch, because in the Leningrad Dutch you're not playing e6 immediately, you're playing first d6 and then bishop g6, bishop to g7. So already with the move e6, I think it would be a slightly worse Leningrad setup. Now my opponent played move bishop to e7, which basically showed me here that he's going into classical systems of the Dutch defense by playing the setup that we have talked about already here. So as I said, he's trying now to get the move d6 and then later to break and enter with the move e5. So this is now his approach. So we're now in the classical variation of the Dutch defense. So here I continued with b3 because first of all we have to understand the concept. As I said, my opponent, he's trying to get d6 e5 goals. In order to prevent it, you have to be fast now. You have to be really active to prevent this idea. He can get this e5 pawn move through sometimes, but at least slow him down in his approach, slow him down in this idea to get this e5 breakthrough motif. So first of all, I played b3 with the preparation to play bishop to b2 and then to anticipate the possibility of the e5 move. So after move b3, we have kingside castling. I played bishop to b2. We have now this approach. As I said, d6, e5 is the preparation. And let's flip the board now for black. Here in this particular position, my opponent, as I said, is trying to get this e5 goal to go into, I'm not saying it's the same, but it's similar like in this King's Indian structure. If you're familiar maybe with the orthodox setups of the King's Indian structures, when black is getting the e5 through, then he's trying to get f4 in some lines, if possible also to get g5, g4, f4. So he's trying to storm now with his pawns on the king side. So that's why we have to understand, as I said, first of all, what he's trying to do. Now after move d6, I met this idea with this move, knight to h3, and I like this setup. I've explained this knight to h3 approach in many of my videos against the Dutch defense. You can check them out. Also, I've explained this knight to h3 approach also against the Leningrad Dutch, also against the Dutch Stonewall Dutch. So you can use it. The most important thing here about this move is to notice this move knight to h3 is very strange to handle, because in some lines after knight to d7, knight to g5 or knight to f4 can be played where the e6 pawn could be very weak. So we are threatening some forks in many of these lines. Also, what this move is doing, and I think that's the most important part of this move, is that it keeps the flexibility of the bishop active here. The bishop is still dangerous on this diagonal. If you play knight to f3 immediately, then you're blocking out your opponent's activity, your activity of the light square bishop. Okay, this move is preventing maybe the move e5 in the beginning, but I like also here my options to be very active on this side of the war with my knight. So now my opponent has many options. For instance, many times you see this approach, queen to e8. This wasn't played in the game that I played, but I wanted to show you also a common plan by black in the Dutch defense, still with the same idea to get this e5 goal. Now my recommendation is to play normally, knight to c3, because when he played queen to e8, he left also the defense of the square c7. Now with knight to b5, we could threaten maybe knight to c7 fork ideas. So it's also a nice part. And for instance, if he tries bishop to d8 here to connect this bishop to the square c7, that's very weak, and it's a common maneuver that you see in these types of structures in the Dutch defense. Don't be surprised if this happens, that your opponent places simply a bishop on d8. It's strange, but it's actually meeting the whole plan that we have talked about. He's trying to get the e5 goal. Now we simply castle, and if he gets his e5, now comes the motif that we'll talk about here many times in this video. After move e5, you have to be fast, you have to get your e4 goal. And this will be now our theme, our subject of this particular video, the e4 goal. e4, I guarantee you, black in many lines is not expecting. He's not seeing this move, and this move is really great because it opens the position, and we have still a great activity. The queen is a little bit strange. It's exposed now on the e file, and also the minor piece activity here by black is not so brilliant. So although black has his whole concept gone through here with the move e5, he lost too much time in order to do that. Now we have to be very fast with the move e4. And notice now what happens after move e4. Let's see possible lines. If he plays e takes d4, then we pick up now the pawn with the queen. And if he plays something strange like knight to e4, look at this. We can play knight takes e4 and even threaten checkmate. So he cannot even pick up the piece now here on e4, because he's going to checkmate it in one. So after move e4, what he could try is, of course, here f takes e4. But now we played this one, d takes e5. If he plays here queen to e5, the problem is now After knight to f4, we're getting again the knight very, very active. What he could try is to get here c6, d5 ideas to maybe somehow connect this pawn to the weak pawn on e4, but now we continue the pressure. He's trying to protect maybe the pawn, we're putting more pressure, then we simply pick up here the pawn, and in my opinion this is a solid position. Look at this, the queen is endangered, we have this connection between the queen and the bishop, so we got our pawn back, we got our activity. Knight to f6 is the threat, picking up the rook on the e file. The rook is not connected to this other rook, so many tactical problems here for black. Or even if he plays something like, I don't know, bishop to g4 here, then we play queen to c2 with the same maneuver, with the same idea. We connect the queen to the bishop, and now still there are worries what are you going to do against this potential knight takes e4 move. So let's go back here after move e4, and as we said, f takes e4, d takes e5. What he could do is now to play d takes e5, but now it seems so that we cannot pick up now the pawn on e4 because the bishop is overloaded to the defense of both of these pieces, to the defense of the knight on e4 and also the knight on h3. But actually we can do it. Look at this, knight to e4, and after knight takes e4 we have this resource, queen to d5. Now we pick up even this pawn. If he tries to cover himself, if he gets back, then of course we pick up simply the piece, and it's perfectly fine a position. Black is continuing the game with an isolated pawn, which is a weakness. Of course we have a great activity, we can occupy the open file. So also in these lines, this whole concept for black is not working. So that's why after move knight to h3, as we said, the whole idea queen to e8, bishop to d8 is a little bit too slow. So my opponent tried to play the move c6. He's trying still this e5 goal, but with a different idea. He's trying queen to c7 and then to play the move e5. Also in some lines to play queen to c7, knight to d7 and e5. But now, as I said, we're continuing with normal development, kingside castle, and he's trying now queen to c7, e5, that's the goal. But now I would not recommend you to play the move knight to c3 that we have seen previously, because there are no threats of knight to b5 or knight to d5. So that's why I developed my knight in a different way. Knight to d2. Still we have the flexibility to get our e4 goal. So e4 is our main strategic goal against your opponent's e5 goal. So e4 has to be played. After knight to d2, notice that also the c file in some lines could be open, so that's why I didn't want to also play the move knight to c3, because after rook to c1, the knight is standing in the way, so there are maybe some tactical possibilities by the rook against the queen on the c file, so the knight would bother me then in potential tactical lines. So after knight to d2, my opponent tried now the move e5, and you got the grip now. We still have this opportunity to play the move e4. It seems strange that you're allowing this move because still the bishop is overloaded to the defense of both of these pawns, but that's the maneuver that I really wanted to learn here. It's actually possible, because look at this, my opponent fell for this because he played f takes e4, I played again this idea, d takes e5, d takes e5, I played knight takes e4 with the possibility to get the queen now, again very active on h5. My opponent took now knight to e4, I played bishop to e4, and basically what black should do here is maybe to play something, I don't know, queen to d7, trading off more pieces, simplify the game. But still, even in any simplified scenario, I think I'm better here, because black has to always worry about the isolated e pawn. So my opponent went to tactical line after bishop to e4. He took now the knight on h3, but now he got into one of my home preparations into a trap, because after queen to h5, what are you going to do? For instance, you try g6, then we play simply here queen to h3, we pick up the piece, we're still better. Still there is this isolated pawn, weaknesses on light squares, we can occupy the e and d file, we're faster in development, so much better position of course here for white. So after move queen to h5, what my opponent tried is this line, bishop to f5, makes really sense, because after bishop to f5 he thought that he could win a piece with the move g6, but of course I sacrifice with bishop take g6, h take g6, queen to g6. Notice now the bishop on e7 is standing in the way of the queen. The queen cannot cover the 7th rank. My opponent tried to get back here into the game. I delivered a couple of checks, and now after move bishop to e5, this whole tactic comes, of course, with a direct threat against the queen. My opponent covered with bishop to d6 because the queen was hanging, and now I played queen to g6. And in this particular position, black resigned. You, of course, can only cover, but then it's checkmate here in one move. So very, very important ideas. So also in this line, as we said, let's go here. After e takes d4, queen to d4, knight takes e4. We have seen f takes e4 led into this position. So the most important thing here to notice is that, for instance, in this position, e4 is possible. That's now the whole motif of this video. e4, e4, e4. We're searching for this move against these types of structures. And also here in this particular position, in a different story, also notice that e4 is working. Now opponent, as I said, let's see this tactic. F takes e4, d takes e5. He has to take, and now knight takes e4 is working. It's now a much better continuation for white because also of the isolated e pawn. Even if black doesn't react now in a tactical way, even if he tries maybe to develop the pieces, even if he plays a slow game, I think this would be a good position for you because you have a great activity with your minor pieces. Knight will come on g5, queen can maybe get into the game. We can also play queen to c2, occupying the d file, occupying the e file, weak pawn on e5. So I think it's a solid game, much better game here for white for sure in this position. So let's see again this tactic. Knight to e4, bishop to e4 he took, and now he's facing many tactical problems. For instance, if he gets back here, then of course he gets checkmated with this beautiful checkmate pattern, with this beautiful bishops and queens activity. So okay, I hope that you understood this concept. When he's trying e5, you have to be fast in your e4 approach. e4, e4, e4. Notice this move, try it out, try to get this goal through, try to get this concept, because you will surprise your opponent, because he will go maybe for the h3 knight. He will miscalculate something in his prep, and in my opinion this is a solid, good approach against the Dutch defense, against this classical variation. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed the study. If you want to see more how to beat Dutch defense videos, here's the link of our studies. You can also check it out, and if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and what do we say? Chess is the best, of course.